Hello class. Today we're going to talk about volume of a sphere. A sphere is the set of points in 3 dimensions that are a fixed distance from a given point called the center. A plane that intersects a sphere through its center divides the sphere into 2 halves, or something called hemispheres. The edge of a hemisphere is what we call a great circle. So a sphere is a ball. That's all it amounts to. Okay, so half a ball is called a hemisphere. So if we cut that circle in half and we make that circle right there, which is the circle here on the hemisphere, that circle is called a great circle. Okay, on the earth, we call that the equator. Okay, so kind of think about it in terms of that. So that's what we're talking about today, is a sphere. And how do I find the volume of a sphere? Well, the volume of a hemisphere, which is half of the circle, is exactly halfway between the volume of a cone, which we talked about yesterday, and the volume of a cylinder, which we talked about a couple of days ago. Only if that cone and that cylinder have the same radius and the same height. Okay? So when you look at this, you've got, in this particular shape, you've got this cone that's right here. All right? So there is the cone that we're talking about. Okay, and it goes all the way around to the back side as well. Okay, now if we have the cylinder as well, and here's the cylinder, the same kind of thing. We got this circle going around like this. Okay, and here is our cylinder that we're talking about that has the same base. Well, that sphere, the hemisphere, is halfway between that. Okay, so that's half the volume. So if I were to find the volume of the cylinder and find the volume of the cone, add those together, divide that by 2, I would have the volume of the hemisphere. And then to find the volume of the entire sphere, I would just then multiply that by 2. So that's how a sphere is related to each one of these. So what our job is today is, 1, to determine what is the formula that I'm going to use to find the volume of a sphere, and then how do I do that? So here we go. The volume of a sphere. Okay, it says that all we're going to do is we're going to do the volume of V. The volume V of a sphere is 4/3 pi times the cube of the radius. So it's 4/3 pi r cubed. Now by now we know what all of these pieces mean. V stands for volume, pi, we're going to use 3.14 for that. And then the r, we know that that's a radius. And the radius of a sphere is the same thing as the radius of a circle. We look at that great circle, that hemisphere in the middle, where we have that nucleus, okay, right there in the center point, kind of like a cell. Okay, well, the radius is from that center point is a line that is drawn that goes out to touch the sphere. Okay, so it's the same basic idea as what we have in a circle. Same thing. Okay, it's just it can go in any direction and it would be the same length. So the formula we're going to use is 4/3 pi r cubed to find the volume of a sphere. So let's see if we can do that. So it says find the volume of a sphere that has a radius of 9 feet, both in terms of pi and to the nearest tenth. Okay? Now when it says in terms of pi, that means we don't plug in a value for pi. We just keep pi there. Okay? We're not going to worry about that one right now. We're not quite there yet. Let's see if we can just find the volume of the sphere. So the first thing that we do is we write the formula down. Volume is equal to 4/3 times pi r cubed. Okay, so this is just a matter of plugging in information. And this is, again, and the reason why I have you write the formulas down, because it tells you what to look for. So we start off with volume is equal to 4/3 times, well, the value that we're going to use for pi is 3.14 times, and now I need to have the radius of this particular shape. And the radius in this one is 9. So we do 9 times 9 times 9, because that's what r cubed means. It means give me 3 of them. So then we go to our calculator. Now to type 4/3 into the calculator, you just type it in with parentheses, just like that. So you do parentheses, 4 divided by 3, close parentheses, times 3.14, times 9 times 9 times 9, equals, and you find out that the volume of this sphere is 3,304.8, and in this case, feet cubed, because it is still a cubic dimension. It's still using the 3 dimensions because it's volume. Okay, so all we have to do to find volume of a sphere is do 4/3, 4 divided by 3, times pi, the 3.14, times the radius cubed. So if we have a diameter, you need to make sure that you cut that in half. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 4 problems. So I want you to pause the video, work these 4 problems, and then come back to see what each of the answers are. Here you go. Find the volume of each sphere. Please round to the nearest tenth. We're not going to do in terms of pi. Okay, let's see how you did. On this first one, you should have written volume is equal to 4/3 times 3.14 times 4 times 4 times 4. Plugged all that in, and if you did that, you should have come up with 267.9 feet cubed. Now notice it did say round to the nearest tenth, so you need to look at your rounding on this particular number. Okay, on the next one, you should have done the same thing. 4/3 times 3.14 times 7.2 times 7.2 times 7.2. Okay, so if you did that one correctly, you should have come up with a rounded answer of 1,562.7 meters cubed. Now, number 16 is a little bit trickier. I'm hoping that you realize that that distance was a diameter. So the radius actually was 3.5 kilometers. So you should have done this one as volume is equal to 4/3 times 3.14 times 3.5 times 3.5 times 3.5. And if you did that correctly, you would have come up with the answer of 179.5 kilometers, and that should be cubed. Okay. And then in the last one, you should have done the same thing. Okay, we have a diameter given. Okay, that diameter, okay, we cut that in half to get 10 for our radius. Okay, and you multiply it 4/3 times 3.14 times 10 times 10 times 10, and you should have come up with an answer of 4,186.7 centimeters cubed, not squared. Okay, so that's how we find volume of a sphere. All we have to do is 4/3 pi r cubed. Until next time.